Okay, hello, hi everybody. Welcome to another edition of Papa Bear. Thank you again for being part of this conversation and listening to these discussions that we're having around this very important subject of fatherhood. I want to introduce a very good friend of mine who is joining us via Zoom. He's a good guy. We've known each other for a very long time. We're doing life together, and yeah, I just wanted him to introduce himself and tell us a little bit about himself. So, Karibu, man.
Thank you very much. My name is Marlon. I am a father of 4 children, 3 girls, 1 boy. If it was up to me, I'll probably have a few more.
Wow.
That decision is not all within my control. The reason for that is I think I greatly enjoy fatherhood.
Yeah.
It brings me a lot of satisfaction. So it's a big part of who I am.
Yeah.
But as an individual, I consider myself created to be, the best I can describe it is a bridge to help people move from one side of life to the other and help them find meaning, purpose, fulfillment in not the big things, but very little things that when put together make a very big picture.
Okay. I mean, it's not every day, Marlon, that you have people of our age with 4 kids. I mean, 3 kids. I have 3 kids, and yeah, having 4 kids is a calling, man, and you want more.
Yeah. I think, let me say it this way. There exists in life wisdom. And that wisdom is not necessarily found in the loud and very public places that many times we look for it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that wisdom is found in quiet places with very humble, down-to-earth individuals. And that really set a good foundation for us. When we were starting out, we went through a very transformative parenting class. So a lot of the things that discourage people from having more children, we were able to deal with very early. So our children are a blessing. They're not a pain. They're a good thing. We enjoy them. We have fun. We laugh. We play silly games. We have our own stuff that we do as a family that if you were there, we probably not do, because you'll probably be thinking, hey, what's going on here? But we have those little things that we do with each other and around each other.
Yeah.
That makes it a lot of fun. And I think the big differentiator is that we had on the onset very great wisdom that really helped us.
Okay.
Perhaps I could mention the source. I don't know if that would make a difference. This is Dr. Mkolwe,
yes.
Navigators. If anybody would ever be interested in getting to know more about the classes, they are very transformative. They have really made our lives a lot easier with our children.
Yeah. And incidentally, I think that's where we met. I'm not wrong. I know some of our early interactions happened around that class. We went to the same class. The class is called Raising Future Parents. Just, for everybody out there, you can go to the website raisingfutureparents.com and see more about it. That class really is transformative. A lot of what we're taught is counterintuitive. It's not what the society typically teaches. But it changes the way you do parenting. It changed my parenting journey completely, 180, as in I'm a completely different parent because of going through that class. And incidentally, I'm part of the faculty for the class, by the way. I also teach some of the classes now as part of my
fantastic
ministry and all. But it's interesting how the parenting classes. Parenting is not something that we typically feel we need to learn how to do. I think a lot of us grow up thinking that fatherhood is a biological process. As long as I can sire a child, then I'm a father. But I think there's a lot that we need to learn. Like we need to literally sit down and take classes on so that we get better in, I think.
Actually, if I was president, one of the things I would figure out and find a way of introducing into the lives of people is family. How do you raise a successful family? I don't know anyone who grows up wanting to raise delinquent children or get into a relationship that breaks down. I don't know many people who do that, but they do.
Yeah.
And these things go wrong.
Yeah.
And then we are left with a lot of heartbreak, particularly for us men, because we don't talk about it. Doesn't mean we don't hurt. It just means that we do our best to try and keep it inside, but we hurt as much.
Yeah. No, I agree. Completely agree. And part of the reason why I wanted to talk to you, Marlon, is we've been talking a lot on Papa Bear in the recent past about the whole issue of the father figure. We started off talking about different types of fathers, dominant, negligent, permissive. There's all different types of approaches to fatherhood. Many of us grew up with dominant fathers. Many of us grew up with fathers who, we do not want to emulate. But the bottom line is that we end up being our fathers. That was the gist of it. And we can take a decision deliberately to do things differently. But if we do not intervene and do things differently, then we end up being our fathers because we do what we learned and what we knew. And we've had this conversation about sort of like your fatherhood experience and the people who raised you, the men who raised you. And I know you've gone through quite a bit. You've gone through not just one father. I mean, you've been raised by a number of different men. Maybe you can just tell us briefly what that was like for you.
So my first 9 years, I lived with my parents. Should I say 8 years? I lived with my parents. And then after that, I was shipped off to live with my uncle and auntie. And then after that, I lived with my sister and her husband. And so, in effect, I've had, within my first 14 or so years of life, 3 different men raised me. Each one of them had a different style. So, different impacts on me. And when I look back, sometimes I was able to identify the gaps in my life and see the impact that has had on me. Yeah.
And I get this question quite a bit about having a father figure in life. I mean, not everybody has the privilege of having a father figure. There are many people who've grown up raised by either single moms or by people who are not father figures to them. And just based on your experience, what would you say to that dynamic? How critical is it to have a father figure in the life of a child? What would you say?
Mongera, it's a big deal. It's a really big deal. I remember watching this clip where these kids had gone on a camp, and probably about 50 or 100 of them were made to stand in a line on a football pitch, on one line at the end of the goal and across the pitch. And then the gentleman asked if you've been raised by both your parents, take a step forward. If you've been raised by your parents got divorced, or both your parents at one point, or your parents are still together. Let me say it this way: if you've been raised by your parents, both parents, until you're about 10, take a step forward. I'm just going to paraphrase it.
Yeah.
And then if from that group, about half stepped forward. And then from that, he asked, if you've been raised by your parents until you're about 15, both parents, take a step forward. And then about another half move forward. And then if both your parents are still together, and these were kids about 18 to about 20, 21, take a step forward. In the end, it was about 10% that ended up at the front of that line. And he said to the guys at the front, you who are standing here at the front of this, everybody, have this much of an advantage over the people behind you.
Yeah.
That is because you've had stability or some semblance of stability in your life that has allowed you to experience what family is for this many years.
Yeah.
And it was shocking because you could see the guys who didn't take a step forward at all. Their heads hanging down. The kids, their heads were all hanging down. They were looking down. You could see the pain on their faces. You could see questions they had. And here's what I figured after many years of watching my friends, watching people who have been around, and seeing the guys for whom being able to adopt, adjust, and fit in and find their way easily became much more successful than those who struggled a little bit.
Yeah.
And for those of us who struggled, the struggles were never about our abilities. It wasn't because I wasn't an A student. It wasn't because I couldn't figure out what a test tube or what the composition of water chemically was. It wasn't that. It was internal conversations, mainly, I have with myself, or we have with ourselves, before we make decisions.
Yeah.
For some people, especially those at the front of the line, they don't battle with identity. They don't battle with the assurance of who they are. They don't battle with lots of insecurities that the guys who never took a step have to deal with before they make a single decision.
Yeah.
So maybe I could say a lot more, but let me just break it down at that point and leave it there.
Yeah, I know this is not a few minutes conversation. This is something that takes a while. But we're speaking to an audience, and there's people out there who have a bad experience with the whole consistency of male figure in their lives. I guess for some people that figure has never been there. Some people have a good experience where they've had a consistent man, typically the biological father, being with them throughout their lives. And there are some who are a unique pattern. I think your situation is very unique because you've had different people raising you at different points in time. What would you say about the need for consistency? Because I imagine there's different things that you picked from different ones of these guys. And would you say that has served you well, or is it better to have like one consistent experience?
I think the first thing I want to say is this: no one is perfect, and everybody comes with their strengths and weaknesses. A lot of times we approach fatherhood, and especially men, from a perspective of the things they got wrong. We forgot the thing. It's easy to forget the things that they did right. So each one of these fathers that I had their own strengths, and then they had their own set of weaknesses, and they were unique. They were very different.
Yeah.
What I want to say though is it wasn't so much about them as much as my need for them that really stood out. What were the things I was looking for as a child, and who was providing this? I've grown up in an environment with my biological father where a roof over your head, food, school fees paid. I mean, he was being a father, according to him.
He provided the basics.
Yes. I mean, if you look at all that, that is about provision. But there is also the need for leadership, the need for guidance, the need to help me become a man.
Yeah.
Now, as I've grown up, I've realized manhood is not acquired. It is passed on. you said it very well. We become our fathers. Men become what they see. And so what I saw in each one of these different men, I have picked. I want to give an example of my brother-in-law. I mean, his wife, my sister, traveled a lot. He would come home earlier on the days she wasn't around. So you would find he would leave work at 3, go pick up the kids, be home by 4, and then he wouldn't leave the house. And this was always the case. It's funny because what has happened is, because we learn by what we see, I ended up getting married to somebody who travels a lot. Surprisingly, yeah. So
was that a criteria? Like, how often do you travel? Nah, too little. Twice a week? Cheers.
So I don't know. It wasn't even the case when we were, but then she travels a lot. And she's traveling a lot within and out of the country. I have never had a challenge staying with the kids. And the big reason is because I had an example to follow. When you're raising sons or men, we learn from other men. Our culture emphasized the need for boys to spend time with their men. And the reason was because they wanted them to pick certain things, certain habits, certain cultures, certain behaviors. And they would only learn by watching and observing. And that's how come when you talk about circumcision in an African setting, the boys don't mix with the girls. The boys sit on their own, and then it's much older men who come and spend time with you. And for some communities, it involved some level of risk and danger to prove your manhood.
You have to go kill something, kill a lion or some creature of something of the sort.
Yes. And in every community, there was a task this group was supposed to do that would prove their manhood. What it was simply saying to them was, take risks, take charge, be the one to go out there and face the danger, protect your family. These are some of the things I find sometimes when I'm living my life. Certain areas I realize there are gaps because these were never passed on to me very well because of the different fathers I had. So no one could clearly sit down with me and see he's struggling in this area. He has a weakness here. We need to strengthen this. We need to reaffirm this. That didn't happen. So some of those things I've had to learn along the way by watching other men whom I greatly admire and by spending time with people who have basically succeeded.
That's powerful. I mean, there's a saying, the parenting class, there's a saying we usually use, and I know you remember it, that kids are learning whether we're teaching them or not. And that's part of the whole observation dynamic. That kids will observe. They will do what you do. They won't do what you say. And all the more reason for us as men to be very deliberate with what we expose our kids to and how we spend time with them, with a view to their future. So we're not doing things here. We're looking at the future and saying, this is a thing that I'm seeing. This is a struggle that I'm seeing with my son. This is an issue that I'm seeing with him. What can I do? How can I expose him in a way that will be helpful for him in the future, that he ends up being successful in the future? I know that's something that many men struggle with. We tend to focus on the here and now. I want to deal with this discipline issue right here and right now, as opposed to thinking, how will this person's behavior be like in the future, and expose them in the right way. And I think for a lot of people who are in that space where, your son lacks a father figure, I think that's a lesson. How can they expose their sons, their kids, to positive and godly masculinity in a way that influences them in the future. It doesn't have to be that you have to now suddenly marry the nearest guy who's next to you, but you do have to be deliberate about exposing them to masculinity in a positive way. I think that's what I'm hearing.
So you can only give what you have. You can only give what you have.
Yeah.
If I have ice cream, then I can share that with you or give that to you. If I don't have it, I can give it to you. The biggest challenge about parenting is really yourself. It's not the children. It's really yourself. Because you can only give what you have within you.
Yeah.
If you cuss a lot and you use a certain language, the kids will pick it because that is what you've given. I remember one time listening to a man say, when he wants to know whether he did a good job with his kids, he'll look at his grandchildren. Because what he has passed on and has stuck will be passed on to his grandchildren. And so the grandchildren will be the test of the kind of job he did with his children. And I think that says a lot. That says that somebody is thinking beyond the now, as you've mentioned, but actually looking way into the future and the impact that decisions have.
It's so true. I mean, these kids, I mean, right now they're just little people, 5, 6, 10, 15-year-olds. But these are going to be somebody's parents one day. That boy is going to be someone's dad. That lady, that little girl is going to be somebody's mom one day. And they're only going to be able to give what they know. And we have a very important role to play in giving them, setting that foundation for them. Because the truth is, as adults, they have to make decisions on their own. They'll have to inculcate information. They're going to have other sources of information besides us as they grow up. We are the primary point of reference, and whatever we teach them is the foundation from which their lives and their parenting grows from. It's important that we get it right. I mean, this conversation could take hours. We don't have too much time. I just wanted you to just give, just maybe as a parting shot, any thoughts you might have or any encouragement you might have for somebody out there who's grappling with the consistency of a father figure, either for them or for their own children. What would you say to them? What encouragement would you give them?
I think the first thing is anything you invest in, your interest grows and your attachment to it grows. Anything you don't invest in, whether it's time, your mind, energy, dies within you. There's something they call muscle memory when you're working out, when you trying to build up muscle in the gym, because I'm a gym guy, so I spend quite a bit of time in the gym.
Yeah, it's quite evident.
Yes, and I enjoy that as well. So there's something they say called muscle memory. When you've built your muscle to a certain level and strength, and then you walk away from the gym for a period of time, when you come back, the period it takes for your muscle to get back to the strength you had is relatively much, much smaller. So if I've been away for a couple of months and then come back to the gym, it will take me literally about 2 to 3 months to more or less get back to my previous or close to my previous state. Now, somebody who's never been to the gym or doesn't really work on weights, building muscle, or anything like that, doesn't have that. And therefore, your muscle doesn't have the memory. And therefore, when you're going in to do weight, you could be a guy who does lots of cardio, runs 10, 15 kilometers, whatever it is. You will find that your starting point is almost similar to somebody who really doesn't hit the gym as much, because your muscle is weak, it is small, hasn't grown, and therefore does not have any memory of anything you have done. Now, the memory comes by the investment you put in, and the muscle stays there, can shrink, can weaken, but when you get back, it reactivates. And a lot of that is very similar to life and what we do. if you and I start out the same weight, same body size, and I'm hitting the gym 4 times a week, I'm doing weight as well, and you eat and drink whatever it is that you like, in 3 months, there will be a difference in how we look.
Yeah.
In a year, people may not tell we are the same age. In 3 years, you would have added years to your look. I would have lost years to my look. And that's very similar to what we do when we talk about parenting and being a father. The investments you put in stays with the children.
Yeah.
That's why at some point the Bible says, train up a child in the way they should go.
Yeah.
And they never depart from that way when they grow older. So even in old age, these things come back to them. You will find, even when they think they are rebelling, they will not go to certain extremes. There are certain things they will not do. But what does it do? It takes investment from you. It takes going to the gym. It takes sitting down with them, spending time with them. Yeah. It's never always pleasant. It's never always easy. And it's never always nice.
Yeah.
But the end result, when you look at your kids taking charge of situations, making certain decisions, I tell you, it's really satisfying, and it's really a blessing. It's really a blessing.
Yeah.
Finally, if you would let me say one thing.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Somebody once shared a story with me, and it really speaks a lot to the value of fatherhood.
Okay.
They had gone visiting a different country. They had been invited there.
Yeah.
They decided to take a drive around part of the country, and they got to this point near the ocean or right at the beach, and they parked their car. So there's 2 families.
Yeah.
One family belongs largely my friend, and then their hosts were in 2 separate vans. So my friend got out of the car, and they walked out together with her husband. And just, the shops around the beach there, so they're walking around looking, walked some distance away from the car.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, 2 dogs that were just, within some houses adjacent to where they were, broke out of the gate and got out and saw them and started running towards them, barking, and looked like we're going to attack them.
Yeah.
What happened was her husband hid behind her, and he was screaming. And lots of people laugh about that scenario. Some people kind of sit back and wonder, oh my God, that's the end of the relationship. But they had a couple of kids together. The kids, some of them were pretty old. There's all sorts of things that come with a scenario like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Their host, the gentleman who was seated, they were still seated in their car. Their host, the gentleman, the man got out of the car and ran towards them.
Yeah.
Him, and when the dogs saw him running towards them and yelling, they were startled.
Yeah.
So they stopped and just gave him enough time to get to her.
Yeah.
And he stood between the dogs and her.
Yeah.
And her husband was behind her.
Wow.
She said, I stood there and said, look, if I run to the car, the dogs will get to me before I get there. They'll probably maul me. Let me stand here. At the worst, they will take a few bites and then walk away.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing I can do. There's nowhere to run now. It's in the middle of neither here nor there. Yeah. And this guy came and stood between her and the dog, took out his shoes and was using his shoes as a weapon towards the dog. Fortunately, the owner had the dogs back, got out of the gate, saw them, and called them back.
Yeah.
And they went back. This scenario played in my mind for months.
Wow.
Actually, years. I'm trying to figure out why. One day, I'm talking to my friend, and she's talking to me about how she's going to visit her in-laws and spend time with them.
This is
She says, no, you want
the same lady from the story.
Same lady, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Says, I need to go visit mine. This is a couple of months later. And you know what happens when I go there? I just fit in. I become one of them. I'm mixing with the ladies, and we're all cooking together with his mom and his aunties. And we had a long chat about it, just trying to understand how the structure of their family is, just out of curiosity to understand better. And then what hit me was there was no mention of men. So one day I just asked out of curiosity, so, you've talked a little bit about your in-laws and what happens there and how it's really an exciting time when you go there because they're really strong on family.
Yeah.
So where's the dad? Where's the uncle? Unfortunately, his dad passed away many years ago when he was a very young boy.
Yeah.
And then it's mostly been his mom and his aunties who've raised him up. Then it made sense. His reaction was very feminine.
Yeah.
When he saw the dogs.
Yeah.
Because that's what he's seen.
That's what he's seen. That's all he knows.
That's what he knows. He's always seen women around him when they react to danger. This is what they would do.
Yeah.
He's not had the privilege of having a man, when there is danger, run towards the danger to protect his family. And so these are some of those questions that, you look at and you realize the impact of the presence or the absence of a man can have on a child, and what that means for him in the event he's facing adversity. Forget dogs. At the workplace. There are situations that are difficult. How does he react? Does he, stand up and go walk towards it? Or does he coil back and hide? And those are some of the things that I just picked out. And I think it inspired me to want to do a little more for my kids. And for them to see me present and taking action when we had situations that required a man to step in.
Wow. Wow, that's wow. I mean, that's a very sort of a black and white situation, and I think a lot of us deal with situations very differently based on what we know. I really hope that your friend was, better enlightened. Thankfully, she was enlightened and she was able to see where that direction goes. A lot of people would have walked away from that marriage. A lot of people would have said, you know what, I can't deal with a guy who's not able to protect me. Thankfully, she had the grace to try and dig in and find out more. So that's awesome. I think it just goes to the point, that, what we invest. And I think, Marlon, you have a way with words, by the way. If no one's ever told you this, you have a way of expressing things and talking about stuff. You can have a career as a motivational or a coach or something of the sort, because you have a way of expressing things and bring out wisdom. So thanks. I want to appreciate you for
taking the time. Thank you.
To be part of this discussion. I wish we had more time. Would have gone deeper into this whole issue. Perhaps we can do a follow-up video at some point and talk a little bit more about that whole, what men bringing out what they know, what they've learned, or what they've been exposed to. And there's numerous examples of how that can work out. But for now, we have to cut it short. I want to tell everybody thanks for listening to this video, for watching it and being part of this conversation. As usual, feel free to like the video, feel free to subscribe to the channel, to comment if you have any feedback, if you have an experience with this issue, please feel free to do so. But most importantly, let's share, have this video go out there, and let's talk. Let's get more people into this conversation. Papa Bear Kenya, that's a plug. If you want to speak to Marlon directly, I guess they can reach out to you, Marlon. I'm guessing you're on social media to a certain degree, so they can look up, they can search for you.
I'm not too big on social media, but of course I have a Facebook page. What would you want me to do? Give my name, my full name, or?
Yeah, I mean, how do people find you? What's the handle?
Oh no, Instagram. In and out, in and out. I could be there once in 3 months. I'm not going to give that. But it's actually Marlon Lugadiru. So Marlon, Marlon, and then Lugadiru, Lugadiru, on Facebook and on Twitter, as well as Instagram as well. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So thanks a lot, Marlon. Have a good one. Let's keep this conversation going, and cheers. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much, sir.